Brad Bernstein. I am the Bernstein. We were Spar and Bernstein. We're now Spar Bernstein Lewis. I was the Bernstein in Spar and Bernstein. I've been here since 1993. I've helped over 75,000 people. I've been, when I say here, literally here at 225 Broadway on the 5th floor. So for the last 20 some odd years, every one of my clients knows where I am every day, Monday through Friday. I'm not one of those people who move every month and you're like, what happened to my lawyer? I've been here for 20 some odd years. I'll be here until the day I retire in another 20 years. So everybody knows where I am. Just as background, Spar is my grandfather, okay? He passed away several years back. He started practicing immigration law mid-1950s. There was no immigration law prior to 1953. Between World War I and the end of the Korean War, there was no immigration to America. They had so many bars on immigration, it was virtually impossible to come to America. It was in 1953 that they opened it up after the Korean War. That's why I can honestly say my grandfather was one of the first immigration lawyers here in America because he started practicing immigration law back then. So in any event, President Obama went on television November 20th. Everybody saw him, I assume? Everybody watched? At the end, everybody, I'm sure, was just like me. What the heck did he just say? Right? Because I didn't even understand myself. Because he didn't really say anything specific. All he said was he gave a couple of examples to people, and he kept telling the Republicans, go vote on something. Okay? So what did he tell them to go vote on? A year and a half ago, U.S. Senate passed a bill that would give legalization to everybody, or most likely everybody who is in this room. The bill says that if you were living here before January 1st, 2013, you get a green card, amnesty, legalization for you. That's all you had to show. President Obama said he would sign that bill. If we took a straw poll of the members of the House of Representatives in the last year and a half, there was a majority of the members of the House of Representatives, most Democrats, some Republicans, who would get together and pass that bill. In order for the bill to become law so you can have legalization and you can have a green card, you need the Senate to pass it, which they did. You have a majority of the members of the House of Representatives who said they would pass it. You have a president who said he would sign it. So why are we sitting here today with no legalization? The reason we're sitting here today with no legalization is because the Republicans' leadership controls the House of Representatives. And whoever controls the House of Representatives controls what comes up for a vote. And what they have said is they will block a vote unless a majority of Republicans want that vote. Now, there's not a majority of Republicans who want the vote. There's a minority of Republicans and most Democrats who would come together to form a majority. So because a majority of Republicans in the House of Representatives do not want the immigration bill to be voted on, because they know if it gets voted on, it would pass, they block the vote. Basically, the Republican leadership blocked the vote. So President Obama got on television on November 20th, and he said, put it up for a vote. Because he knows if it goes up for a vote, it passes. He's no dummy. And unfortunately, Republicans are not going to put it up for a vote. There's a new Congress that's coming in this week. And now that Senate bill that's been sitting there for a year and a half that passed by both Republicans and Democrats. There's a lot of Republicans who voted for it, too, in the Senate, to give legalization to everybody. That bill goes by the wayside. It's finished. And you got to start over from scratch again with this new Congress. So what does that do for the politics in America? Well, my belief, and I think most people's belief, is that and the Republican leadership knows this too. They're very concerned about immigration. They know that by blocking this bill, they have basically given the fast track to the Democrats to win the presidential election in 2016. Okay? Why? Because we don't live in the same country that when my grandfather started practicing immigration law in the 1950s. In the 1950s, the 85% of the voters of America were white and here for multiple generations. We were not an immigrant society because the immigrants came in the 1800s. So the people who were here in the 1950s were here three generations already. Now we live in a different society today. We live in a multicultural society. We have blacks, whites, yellow, green people, blue people, purple people, orange people, all sorts of different people who come from all over the world, who look different, talk different, act different, have different religions, different languages, different customs. And we are now in a multicultural society, which is what makes American society so great. Why does everybody want to mimic American society? Because we're the melting pot and we've put together a great culture here because of it. But because of that, as a result of that, you can't rely on one vote anymore or one block of voters to vote you in. Ask Mitt Romney that. He relied on one block of voters. Can't rely on one block. You can't rely on a black vote. You can't rely on a white vote. You can't rely on a yellow vote, a green vote, a blue vote. Doesn't matter. You need different groups of people to come together to form a larger block of voters. And if you're an immigrant here, and I'm not even talking about what color your skin is, I'm not talking about what your religion is, but if you're an immigrant here in America who became a citizen, or your children are now citizens who are now voters, you may very well believe many things the Republicans believe in. You may say, Republicans say, go to church every Sunday. Okay? A lot of people say go to church every Sunday. Okay? A lot of people, Republicans say, we don't believe in abortion. It's killing a life inside of somebody's stomach. Republicans believe that. They say it should be outlawed. A lot of people believe that. But even though you may believe that as an American citizen who is the child of an immigrant or somebody who actually immigrated here themselves, you're never going to vote for a Republican because you're not voting based on what their policy is. You're voting based on whether they're including you in their party. And when they say we don't want immigrants here and we don't want immigration here in America, you're voting for somebody else because you don't feel it. You don't feel that they're including you. If you notice, the minorities who vote for Republicans are minorities who've been here for multiple generations. The minorities who are active in the Republican Party are not minorities who immigrated here, but minorities who've been multiple generations here in America. So as a result of that, it is highly likely, and I think the Republican leadership knows that as well, it is highly, highly likely that the Democrats are going to win the presidential election. So with that, what did President Obama do? We said President Obama can't change immigration laws. Only Congress can change immigration laws. He can't give anybody in this room a green card. Nobody. It's not his job. His job is to enforce laws. Congress's job is to make laws. So let me give you an example about somebody else who enforces laws. Let's say this young lady here in front of me in the USA hat has a Ferrari and she's driving 90 miles an hour down the street. Speed limit's 55. A cop pulls her over. Lady, you got this fancy Ferrari. You're driving 90 miles an hour. I got to give you a ticket. You're 45 miles over the speed limit. And this lady's a nice lady and charms the cop. And the cop says, wow, you're a lovely person. I'm not going to give you a ticket. Cop pulls her over because she's breaking the law. Cop's job is to give her a ticket because she's breaking the law, enforce the law. Cop has the discretion not to enforce the law and didn't give you a ticket. Happens every day. Okay. Now think of President Obama as the chief of police of the Immigration Service. President Obama, nobody calls him the chief of police of the Immigration Service, that's for sure. Okay. What they call him is the President of the United States, but he's the head of the Immigration Service. So a year and a half ago, he decided, this is well before he got on television on November 20th, he decided a year and a half ago, I'm not going to enforce the law on certain blocks of people, certain groups of people. So the first people he decided he's not going to enforce the law on, the people who were eligible for the DREAM Act. Does anyone know what the DREAM Act is? Okay, so that's for kids, right. It's actually in the Senate bill. It says if you came here under 16, you get a green card. Now, President Obama can't give the kids who came here under 16 a green card. Doesn't have that authority to do it under the law. But he does have the authority to say, we're not going to deport these kids. So he came up with his own DREAM Act. He made up a new name. Never happened before. He made up a new name. This is President Obama's DREAM Act. He calls it DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. If you came here before June 15, 2007, you were under 16, you were under 30 by June 15, 2012, you went to high school, you graduated high school, you're in high school, we're not going to touch you. And he invited people who were in this group to file an application with the Immigration Service to show you fall within this group. And when you fall within this group and you demonstrate to the Immigration Service you fall within this group, they send you back a letter. It's called the Deferred Action Letter. Deferred Action Letter says the U.S. government will not deport you, unless, of course, you commit a crime or something. But just for the fact of just living here illegally, they will not deport you. No one's going to come knock on your door. No one's going to do nothing to you. Now, in reality, you can walk right down Broadway up and down every day, and no one from immigration is going to bother you. But ain't it a great feeling to know you have this letter that really nobody is going to bother you? You're free and clear. You can get on a plane, don't have to sweat it out. You can get on a bus, go down to Florida, don't have to worry about somebody in Florida asking for documents, because you hear that story a lot. You get on a train, you can go up to Niagara Falls. You know how many people get stopped by immigration by Niagara Falls, just going to look at Niagara Falls? Now you can do it. You don't have to live in Brooklyn or Queens and say, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, I'm stuck here in this borough or in this city. So it's a pretty good feeling. So you have this deferred action letter. And with this deferred action letter, you can now get a work permit. With the work permit, you can get a Social Security number. With the work permit and Social Security number, up to 2.5 weeks ago, in 49 out of 50 states, you can get a driver's license or a state identification card. The only state you couldn't do it was Arizona. They barred it. And then somebody sued the state of Arizona and said it was illegal. The case went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court said that's illegal. Arizona must give you a driver's license. So now it is the law of the land in all 50 states that if you have the deferred action letter and you have your work permit and your social, you can go into any motor vehicle in all 50 states and get your driver's license or state identification card. And as a matter of fact, after you get all these documents, you're also eligible to apply for something called advance parole, which is a travel document. Allows you to travel home, travel back. You get the document here. Now, this was done 1.5 years ago, well before President Obama got on television. But what he did for these group of kids, is he basically gave them that by not enforcing the law, by not giving the ticket to the lady driving fast in her Ferrari, by not enforcing the law and saying, we're not going to deport you, same deal, basically gave these kids, or young adults, because she could have been under 30, the same benefits of having a green card without having a green card. Because what does a green card allow you to do? It allows you to walk down the street freely, allows you to get on a plane, allows you to travel, allows you to work, allows you to get your driver's license, pay your taxes. Every benefit that a green card gives you, they were getting in this deferred action program, except for two things. Two things. Number one, you can't become a citizen through this program. And number two, you can't file for your family. But short of that, for you personally, for your life and your reality, you're as good as anybody who has a green card, except you just have different documents rather than one. So that's what he did 1.5 years ago. 750,000 people applied for this. So I watched his speech on November 20th. I didn't know what his proposals were. I had to read up on it after I did, and I learned a lot. And I had a lady in one of my early seminars. In my early seminars, I was just spitting out laws. Now I use examples because we've had so many seminars and people ask so many questions. I had a lady stood up. She said to me, Brad, I came here when I was 8 years old, and I went to high school here. I went to college here. Graduated college. I've been working. I'm 41 years old now. Pay my taxes every year. I applied for the Deferred Action Program 1.5 years ago. They turned me down. Why? They said I was too old. I had to be under 30. I said, you're right. You weren't qualified for it. As a matter of fact, they punished you for being here too long. Imagine that. Here's a lady who was here for 30 plus years. She couldn't get it because she was here for too long. Yet somebody who was here for 6 years gets it. Not very fair. So the first thing that I read, because President Obama signed a whole bunch of executive orders, the first thing that I read is that President Obama eliminated the age for deferred action for childhood arrivals. It doesn't matter how old you are now, as long as you came here under 16 and went to high school here. So President Obama eliminated the age. I told this lady, I said, guess what? You're in. She says, in for what? I go, in for the deferred action letter. No one's going to nab you. Your work permit, your social, driver's license, the ability to travel. I had another gentleman stand up. He said, Brad, I came here from Jamaica every summer since I was 5. My parents immigrated here when I was a baby. They lived here illegally. My grandma would bring me up. We had visitors visas. My grandma would bring me up every June, pick me up every August, bring me back home. I'd live with my parents over the summer, and then they'd bring me back home, and I'd go to school back in Jamaica every year. And every year I did this until I was 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, my grandma brought me up like usual. My parents surprised me. They said, we bought a house. You can live here full time now. We have a room for you. And they brought me down to the high school. They enrolled me in high school. I went to high school here. I went to college here. I'm now working. I'm in my mid-20s. And I applied for the DACA program a year and a half ago. And they turned me down because my parents only enrolled me in school, and I started living here in 2008, even though I was coming here since the 1990s. And they said because I wasn't living here full time before June 15th, 2007, I was turned down, even though I went to high school here, even though I went to college here, even though I'm under 30 years old. So I said, and even though I've been here for almost 10 years now, 7 years or 8 years. So I said, guess what? You're in. He goes, really? I go, yes, because President Obama changed that rule as well. He moved the date up to January 1st, 2010. So as long as you were physically living here by January 1st, 2010, you're in. He goes, in for what? Same deal. And for your deferred action letter, your work permit, your social, your driver's license, ability to travel. By the way, the ability to travel, we're going to talk about that in a minute because everyone always has questions about that. Towards the end, I'll talk about that. The last guy stand up. He said, Brad, I came here before 2007. I was under 16 at the time. I'm under 30 years old. But when I came, my parents never sent me to school. They said we were too poor, I should go find a job. So my father got me a job at a construction site. I've been laying bricks. That's all I know how to do. So I applied for the Deferred Action Program. They turned me down. They said I never went to high school here. So I said, let me ask you a question. Are you willing to go for a GED program? He said, sure, if it'll help me. I said, yep, because now if you enroll in high school now, you enroll in the GED program, I'm going to give you the telephone number. Go pay your money tomorrow. As soon as you pay your money, guess what? You're enrolled in high school. Now, what the rule says is it doesn't matter when you went to high school anymore. As long as you're in high school or went to high school, we don't care what date it was. As long as you were here before January 1st, 2010, and as long as you came before you were 16. So I said, if you enroll in high school now, guess what? You weren't qualified before, then now you are. So really, the rule now is for the new DACA program, if you came here before 16 and you were living here before January 1st, 2010, you're in. That's the new rule. It took me 10 minutes to tell you one sentence, but you had to understand everything. Okay? So if you came here, remember this, if you came here before January 1st, 2010, you were under 16, you're going to get your documents, whether you went to high school here or not, because we could always enroll you in a GED program. So now, government says 2 million additional people could be eligible for this program. President Obama made a second or a third executive order. I don't know how many they were in total, but I read them all. And this one he called, new program called DAPPA, Deferred Action for Parent Arrivals. You're in DAPPA, you get the same documents as if you're in DACA. Your deferred action letter, your work permit, your social, your driver's license, the ability to travel. Get the same exact benefits. It's the same program, except different criteria to get into the program. In DACA, you had to be here before January 1st, 2010. In DAPPA, you had to be here before January 1st, 2010. In DACA, you had to be under 16 when you came. In DAPPA, doesn't matter how old you were when you came, as long as you had a U.S. citizen child or adult son or daughter or a lawful resident child or adult son and daughter living in America before President Obama got on television. Let me give you 2 examples. I had a lady in one of my other seminars. She raises her hand at the end of the seminar. She says, Brad, I've been here for 30 years. U.S. government saw me at the airport with my visitor's visa 30 years ago, in the 1980s. They haven't seen me since. I never did anything with immigration. I came on a visitor's visa. They haven't seen me in 30 years. Okay, I don't pay my taxes, nothing. I just live here and live my life. I never filed for anything. I never did anything. My son came up from Jamaica on a fiance visa in January of 2014. He was 51 years old. This woman had to be in her 70s. I didn't ask her age, but most likely in her 70s. So the son came up, 51 years old, on a fiance visa, January 2014. He got married to his wife, got adjusted his status, got his green card in September 2014. She goes, am I in? I go, you're in. She goes, even though I've been here for 30 years. I said, yeah, you only needed to be here for 5. The extra 25 is a bonus. She said, even though my son is 51, I said, even if your son was 101, it doesn't matter as long as it's your son. We don't care how old that son is. He's a man-child. It's fine. Even though he only has a conditional green card, even though he has a conditional green card, as long as he had it before President Obama got on TV. On the flip side, my first seminar, first question ever asked to me, man was right in that seat right there. He stands up, he goes, I'm from Ireland. My wife gave birth to our first child, U.S. citizen, obviously born here, on November 20th, the day President Obama got on television. Am I in? So I said, what time was this kid born? It's in the afternoon. Then the answer is yes, you're right. You're in. If it was one of those, 24-hour birthing deals, where the wife's in labor forever screaming and yelling, excuse me, would have been out because you just got to beat Obama to TV. Okay, so the kid came within 3 hours or 4 hours of being in. Because you had to be here before he signed the executive order. So in both those instances, whether it was a baby, a newborn, or a 51-year-old, that newborn was a citizen, that 51-year-old was a green card holder, a conditional green card holder, and any age in between or even older, you're in as long as that child or adult son or daughter is your biological child. Or it doesn't have to be a U.S. citizen. It could be a green card holder, lawful resident. It could be naturalized here before the 20th. And so what's the rule for DAPA? You're here for 5 years. You have children here. Adults, children, minors, doesn't matter. They have a green card. They have a citizen. You're in. You're in for your deferred action letter, your work permit, your social, your driver's license, ability to travel. Somebody asked me, what if I'm in deportation? No problem. Still going to get it. What if I've been ordered deported? No problem. Still going to get it. We're going to apply to the Immigration Service. They're going to give us back a letter giving you that deferred action. Now talking about having a letter saying they can't nab you, that's pretty good if you've been ordered deported. And then we go back to the immigration judge and go, la, 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 can't touch. Actually, we make a motion to reopen after that and lift the deportation order. So it doesn't matter if you're in deportation, you've been ordered deported, as long as you're physically here still. Different situation if you've been ordered deported and then returned. It's a different situation, and that we would have to talk offline about. But if you've just been ordered deported and nobody ever lifted you out of here, you're fine. Somebody asked me, does it matter how I came to America? Nope. Could have entered without inspection. You could have come here on a visitor's visa. You could have jumped out of an airplane. You could have swam for it. Doesn't matter how you came here. I had a guy, he raised his hand, he goes, Brad, I got smuggled in the trunk of a car from Windsor, Canada to Detroit, Michigan. Serious. I said, you know what, somebody offered me $1 million to do that. I would have stayed in Canada. I wouldn't have gotten in the trunk of a car, but you did it, you're here. It's fine, doesn't matter. Because no one is going to say you don't have an entry document, you can't get your DACA or your DAPPA. All they're going to say is, prove to us you've been here for 5 years. So you came on someone else's documents, prove to us you've been here for 5 years. That's all they want to see. So they say there's going to be 5 million people going to be eligible for this program, a total of somewhere between 6 to 7 million people the U.S. government says is going to be applying for these programs. Now, the most important thing I'm going to talk about now is in the next 3 or 4 minutes. The number of people who are applying for this program, because it's important both in a positive and negative way. Let me just take you a history of immigration numbers as I remember it, because I'm doing it based on my memory. Right after the 9/11 attacks, President Bush got on television. He said there's 11.7 million illegal aliens living in America. Just to get off subject for a second, I don't like the term illegal because it is not a crime to live in America without a document to work. It's not a crime in federal government. It's not a crime in any 50 states. So when they use the term illegal, it puts people up in arms that we have illegals here breaking laws when all we have is people who don't have a document to work. It's not a crime. So nobody here who doesn't have a document to work is a criminal. Yet that's what they say every day on TV. Okay? And then, I don't like the term alien, although it's in the Immigration Nationality Act. It's an arcane term that they used from way back, hundreds of years ago, when they originally wrote immigration nationality laws. You know, it's like from the shit, not from Shakespeare time, but it's like reading Shakespeare. So, but when you hear the term alien, you think of there's somebody coming from another planet. So now, when you hear on the news illegal alien, you say we got criminals coming here from another planet and they're destroying America. That's what you hear. That's what Americans hear. And that's why we have a political problem. That's why they call immigration the third rail of politics. Nobody wants to touch it. So imagine, I don't think we would have a third rail of politics if we actually used different terminology and called it what it is. We have a bunch of people here who don't have documents to work. What do we do about it? And if we said that instead, for 15 years rather than illegal aliens, we would be having a different conversation today. Be that as it may, right after 9/11, President Bush said 11.7 million people here out of status. In 2005, 2006, you could say what you want about President Bush. In his second term, he was a friend to the immigrants. He did try to pass amnesty. Couldn't get the Republicans to follow along. But at that time, he also said there was approximately 11.7 million undocumented people living in America. When McCain and Bush tried to get together one last time before Bush left office to do it again, they claimed 11.7 million undocumented people. And when President Obama got on television on November 20th, first words out of his mouth, 11.7 million undocumented people here in America. And I'm sitting on my couch saying, wow, nobody's come, nobody's gone, nobody's died in 15 years. The same exact people have been here for 15 years. It hasn't changed. Crazy. And then in my other seminars, I said, did anybody ever get counted in this 11.7 million? I said, did anyone ever fill out a census? Did a U.S. government call you and say, we're counting people undocumented? Are you, aren't you? Did anybody run out of their apartment or their house as the U.S. government's coming down the street counting people? Yes, I'm here. Don't forget me. No. So if the number hasn't changed in 15 years, and I've yet to meet one human being who's been counted, I know it's a completely made-up number. Okay? I don't know where they came up with this number, but I know it's completely made up. What is the real number? Who the heck knows? Okay? Wouldn't surprise me if there's 11.7 million undocumented people in New York, tri-state area. Wouldn't surprise me if it's 20 million people in America, 30 million. You wouldn't shock me if you told me 50 million undocumented people in America. Wouldn't shock me. But I know it's not 11.7 million, and I know that in the last 3 years, 250,000 people have called my office looking for immigration help. That doesn't mean I have 250,000 clients, but people just made an inquiry. Can't tell me that 2% of the undocumented population in America called me. So I know that number is low. It's much higher. What that number is, we don't know. So what I spent 5 minutes going through this. Why is that important? I had a lady stand up in one of my early seminars. She said, Brad, this DACA, DAPPA sounds pretty good. Get all the benefits of having a green card. How long do these benefits last for? I said, they last for 3 years. She goes, what happens at the end of the 3 years? I said, you got to renew it. She goes, I go, what do you mean, She goes, is President Obama going to be the president in 3 years from now? And I said, no. And she goes, well then, I'm not doing it. I said, why? She goes, because the next president is going to make me pack up and go. And I said, well, okay. Didn't you hear originally my whole little political speech about how the Democrats are going to win? We live in a multicultural society. Now, this lady was a tough cookie. She says to me, you have a crystal ball? You know for a fact Hillary Clinton's going to be the president of the United States? Because if you know Hillary Clinton's going to be the president of the United States, I'll do this. But if you don't know for a fact and you can't show me a crystal ball, I'm not doing it. So I said, okay, let's talk logically then. Okay, the U.S. government says 6 to 7 million people are going to be applying for these documents. They're basing it on their assumption that there's 11.7 million undocumented people in America. We have just gone through that number is a made-up number. We know that number is higher. How much higher, we don't know. My guess is it could be 8 million, 10 million. On a conservative guess, 10 million people could be possibly eligible for this program, maybe more. So let's call it 9 million, 10 million people. It doesn't matter, whatever the number is. 3 years from now, you got 10 million people working. Now remember, you have a work permit now. 10 million people got their work permits. 8 million people got their work permits, whatever the number is. And they're fanning across America. Because you have a work permit now, you don't have to sit in Brooklyn and try to hustle on the street. You can go get a job anywhere you want. You don't like Brooklyn anymore. You don't like Queens. You like Iowa. You like the fresh air of Montana. Go. You like California, Florida. You like the South, the North, the East, the West, doesn't matter. And you got millions and millions, 8, 9, 10 million people working. On a conservative number, it's going to be much higher than that. Working at Fortune 500 companies, mid-sized companies, small companies, mom and pops. People started their own businesses and hiring U.S. workers. You're going to find an internet entrepreneur who started the next Google and became a billionaire out of this group, guaranteed. There's somebody out there with a great idea who just never was able to do it. And you're going to have a president in 3 years from now, a new president, whoever that is, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. What president in 3 years from now is going to stand up and say, you 10 million people, you're all fired. We're not renewing your work permits. Don't show up to work tomorrow because you'll be working illegally. Where are all these companies going to find replacements for you? Who's going to train these replacements for you? More importantly, where is the U.S. government going to replace your tax dollars? 10 million new taxpayers in America budgeting the deficit. Where are those tax dollars coming from? Fire 10 million people, you put America in a recession. Presidents don't get reelected in recessions. Presidents will not do that. And if you have a crazy enough president who says, I don't care, you're all fired anyway, you better have a plan to make everyone pack up and go. Because you're not going to fire people and say, we don't want your tax dollars, and we're going to put the U.S. economy in a recession, and you go hustle on the street again. Nobody would do that. They're only going to fire you if they have a plan to send you home. Where are these 10 million cops coming from to go arrest you? Where are the 10 million jail cells? Where's the airplane seats? Where are the judges to deport you? The trial attorneys? They don't exist. So even in your wildest imaginations, you say you have an irrational president who's going to do that anyway and throw the economy into the tubes. They can't deport you anyway, so why would they ever do that? So the only logical thing that any president can do, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is renew your papers. Only logical thing they can do. Why? Because there's power in numbers. If you told me this program's for 10,000 people, sure, the next president could say, you 10,000, you're gone, pack up and go. And if they really wanted to find you, they can find you individually, one by one. They found Osama bin Laden in the middle of Pakistan. They can find you in Queens, trust me. Okay? But they can't do it for 10 million people. Okay? It would put the economy in a great recession. And quite frankly, almost everybody, I don't want to say everybody because there's always some bad apples in the group, but almost everybody is a decent human being. Most people are decent. And you're going to go out and people are going to fan out across America. And you're going to be working next to somebody in an office or on a job or wherever it is that you're working. And they're going to say, you're a great person. I never met anybody from your country before. You're lovely. You have lunch with them. Maybe you even socialize outside of work. And people start getting to know people that they would have never have met before. And then they're going to say in 3 years, how are they deporting you? I don't want them to deport you. You're nice. You're a good person. I don't want to lose my friends. So what will happen is the attitude of Americans are going to change as people fan out across America, especially working in areas that didn't have immigrants before. And then what you're going to see is then there's going to be a legalization program. So that's my personal opinion. So that's the good of being in such a large group of people. Now here's the bad. I read an article last week. The U.S. government was proud to announce that they're hiring 1,000 workers to process all these applications. They claim there's going to be 6 to 7 million applications coming in, 1,000 new workers, and they said by the end of December 2016, 2 years from today, they will be able to process those 6 million applications. There's no way 1,000 people can read 6 million applications. And not all of those 1,000 people are going to be reading applications. There's got to be somebody there who opens the mail. There's got to be somebody there who answers the telephone. There's got to be somebody there who brings the mail to somebody else. I don't know. It's a bureaucracy. Everybody just does one job. So I don't know how many out of those 1,000, they didn't announce that. I don't know how many out of those 1,000 are actually going to be actual immigration officers reviewing applications. Well, it's going to be less than 1,000. To read 6 million applications they claim are going to be done in 2 years, we're probably going to have 8, 9, 10 million applications filed. It's going to take much longer than 2 years to process. In the current DACA program, just from my own personal experience, people who filed their applications right when they said, go do it, got their documents back in about 3 to 5 months. People who waited 6, 9 months to file their applications waited close to a year. And that was just 750,000 people applying. What's going to happen when it's millions and millions and millions and millions of applications? I remember back in the time of the 245I, I don't know if anybody was here back in the 1990s who didn't qualify for 245I, but everybody was running around to file an application with the Immigration Service or with the Department of Labor before April 30th, 2001. It took the Department of Labor at that time, with all the new labor applications that were filed, 4 years to process everybody. So, what does that mean? It means there's a race. There is a race going on, and it's first come, first served, exactly. Okay? So I had a client here who raised her hand, and she said to me, Brad, I went to another lawyer, and that lawyer said, there's nothing to do right now. Come back in 120 days. And I said, well, that's really bad advice, and that's incorrect advice. Okay? Let me tell you, quite frankly, can I file the applications today? No, you can't file the applications today. Why? Because the U.S. government just said they're in the process of hiring 1,000 people. They don't even have the people in place yet. They said the people will be in place by March. They'll have them trained and hired and ready to go by March. April at the latest. They haven't given us a date yet. Does that mean that this program is not in effect? No. Program is in effect today. It was in effect on November 20th. President Obama did not get on television and say, gee, in 120 days, I think I'll sign something. He signed it on November 20th. They just need a couple of months to get themselves organized and hire the people to process these applications. So I said, your lawyer's wrong. This program's in effect today. They're just not accepting applications yet. I said, number two, if you listen to his advice, which I think is poor advice, he's going to tell you after they start accepting applications, that's when you can come back and see me. Then we'll start putting together your paperwork. Then you'll start running around trying to get the documents. Then you're going to come back to me, and then we'll hopefully get it filed for you by the summer, if you're lucky, or by the end of the summer. Guess what? You got 4 or 5 months of people ahead of you already. Okay? What is now a 4 to 5 month wait for you may be a 9, 10 month wait. If you're really lackadaisical, or your lawyer's lackadaisical, and he gets it at the end of the year, you're not waiting to the end of 2016. Don't forget, it's not, you got to file it and then wait for your benefits. So you file at the end of 2015, maybe it's 2017, more than 2 years from now that you're getting your benefits. You struggled and sacrificed to wait another 2 years? I don't think so. Somebody's going to wait that long. I just hope it's nobody I know. Okay? So what I'm doing, what this law firm is doing, is we're putting applications together today. What we're saying is, don't wait for the race to start and then go buy your sneakers. Buy your sneakers now, so when the race starts, you can start running. Be prepared. Exactly. So we're putting applications together today. Does that mean I can file it today? No, as I said, we can't file till March. I don't know. But when they say file and the race starts, you're already running. We're down at the post office filing your applications, putting it in the mail. Are you going to be number one online? No, because there's going to be some fool who drives to the immigration office to wait online to hand deliver it. And they'll be on NBC News. I'm the first one to file. But you'll get in on day 2 or day 3, and that's pretty good. You'll be right at the top of the race. Now, is it a secret what we need to do? No. Why can we do this? Because DACA, if you remember, has been in effect for 1.5 years already. It's not a new thing. All that President Obama has done is increase the tent of people, increase the group of people, the block of people, whatever you want to call it, who are included in these programs. But the program's been in existence for 1.5 years, so it's not like it's a secret what we need to do. We know exactly what we need to do. So we're putting it all together. And when you say go, it's done, ready, in an envelope, sealed, stamped, ready to go, we're going down to the post office day 1. So for people, when we'll talk about this at the end, for people who want to go literally buy your sneakers today to start the race, we can start it today. 2 other quick things, the other 2 programs that may affect people here in this room, is anyone ever heard of provisional waivers? Okay, so a provisional waiver is a waiver. Well, let me take a step back a second. It's no secret that if you marry an American citizen, you can get your green card. Everybody knows that. Okay, but you need an I-94 stamp in your passport, an arrival departure record, some landing document to show you were inspected. If you don't, you got to go home. And if you go home, you're a fool, right? An absolute fool, because you're getting stuck. Everybody knows that. So people don't go home. You don't have an entry document. You're married to a citizen. You're stuck. You can't do nothing. So President Obama, 1.5 years ago, he came up with this provisional waiver. He says, you file your papers to go home, but before you go home, we're going to give you a waiver. It's like you ever play Monopoly? Like a get-out-of-jail card. Okay? We're going to give you this get-out-of-jail card. It's a waiver. And basically, what this piece of paper says, this card says, is any immigration violation you're okay for. Won't stop you coming back because you violated the immigration laws. What violations of immigration laws? The fact that you overstayed your time here, you worked here illegally. Those are the reasons why people get stuck home, because they violated immigration laws. So when you go home, they only interview you on, do you have any health issues, drugs in your system, criminal records, have you ever lied to the government, committed fraud? Those are the 3 main topics that they interview you on. So if you're a squeaky clean person, we only do this for squeaky cleans. Because if you're not squeaky clean, we don't do it. But for squeaky clean people, the only thing they've done is, I've just lived here illegally, I've done nothing else wrong. You get this waiver. It's like your get-out-of-jail card from Monopoly. You get your appointment down in whatever country you are. Doesn't matter, any country. You walk in with your waiver. All they're asking you about is health, criminal records, fraud. We've sent about 100 guinea pigs home already. Those 100 guinea pigs have all come back. They stayed home about 2 weeks on average. Some 3 weeks, some 10 days, but in that time frame. They all went home shaking. They all came back dancing. Every one of them. So now President Obama has increased the group of people who can do this. Before it was just people who were married to U.S. citizens. Now it's people who are married to permanent residents, but more importantly, people who are the adult son and daughters of U.S. citizens and permanent residents. Why is that important? Because any U.S. citizen or permanent resident who filed for their adult son or daughter, and that adult son or daughter is living here in America, out of status, and that application went in after April 30th, 2001, which was that 245I Bill Clinton law, can't get their green cards here. Most likely can't get their green cards here because they can't pay the penalty fee. and then they have to go home, and if they're home, they're stuck for 10 years. So basically, they have a worthless piece of paper, a worthless filing saying you're eligible for your green card and nowhere to go. Now you can do this provisional waiver, this get out of jail card. As long as you're squeaky clean. Go home, come back for 2 weeks. It's another option for people. Now, I talked about advanced parole, and I didn't get into it much. We're going to go back to DACA and DAPA for a second. After you get your DACA and DAPA, there's a second application. You don't do it with the initial application. You can apply for advanced parole, which is your travel document to leave and come back. Now, you can't tell the U.S. government, you know what? I haven't been to a beach in a while. I'd like to sit on a beach and vacation and drink some rum or Red Stripe or whatever you like to drink. Can't do it. They're not going to give you an advanced parole for a vacation. What they will give you an advanced parole for is for a life event that you need to attend. A death, God forbid. Somebody's ill. A wedding that you're an important member of. Or some other important life-affirming event that you can't miss. I'm sure most people in this room can come up with a life event that they need to travel for. Okay? And then we'll get you traveling. That's the last benefit of having the deferred action. Now, I had a gentleman stand up. He says, Brad, I'm married here for 10 years. I came on a crewman's visa. Okay, so if you come on a crewman's visa, you can't adjust your status either. It's like coming here without inspection. I've got 3 kids. So I'm going to do the DAPA, but there's no way in the world I'm going to do this provisional waiver, even though I'm squeaky clean, because my family, my wife, my kids rely on my income. And if I'm stuck in Jamaica, everybody's out on the street. I can't take that chance. I don't care if you tell me 1,000 people went home. I'm not doing it. I said, okay, fine. So I'm not here to twist people's arms. I'm just telling you that in my opinion, it's safe, but you got to feel comfortable too. So I said, will you do this? I said, you'll do the DAPA program. He says, absolutely. I'll get my work permit and social. I said, will you get the advanced parole? He goes, as long as I don't have to go to the U.S. Embassy for anything. I said, nope, you get it here. When you go home, you don't have to go to the U.S. Embassy for anything. And then you're going to come back into the United States, and you're going to get inspected at the airport. You're going to show your advanced parole document. He says, yes, I would do that. I said, guess what happens when you show your advanced parole document when you come back at the border? He goes, what? I said, you're inspected. You made a legal entry. You're married to a U.S. citizen. Now you can adjust your status. You don't even have to do a provisional waiver. So, you know, there's a little tricks of the trade. The last thing that President Obama put into place is something called parole in place. Exactly as it sounds. Advanced parole is an inspection when you come back. Parole is an inspection. That's what it means. So basically, parole in place is they're giving you an inspection right here in this place. You don't have to leave. Why would they give somebody an inspection? It's a legal fiction. They're saying you were inspected when you never were. Why would they give somebody an inspection? If you're married to someone in the military or somebody who has been honorably discharged from the military, they're going to give you that inspection document. You don't have to worry about DACA. You don't have to worry about DAPA. You don't have to worry about advanced parole. You don't have to worry about provisional waivers. We're going to do the parole in place for you all day long, every day. That's the number one thing you would do. You're married to someone in the military or honorably discharged. You get your parole in place. They're giving you a letter saying, here you are. Here's your I-90. It's not an I-94, but it's like having an I-94. Here's the stamp in your passport. Now you can adjust your status. So those were the 4 main things. President Obama also made provisions for people who invest $1 million in a business. If there's any millionaires in the audience, I'm happy to talk to you about that after. Won't get into it. He also made provisions for people who are on student visas, who are in science, technology, engineering, math degrees. So if you're on a student visa, that is the degree to get. Anything in science, technology, engineering, and math, because they're going to allow you to stay here forever.